Hello everyone. My name is Mohit Jadeja. I am a PhD scholar at Lakehead University and also going to be an adjunct professor soon, starting this summer. I have here Dr. Jay Kennedy with us, who we have invited, and they have graciously accepted our invitation to help our incoming MEd students. So, Jay, if you would like to share something about yourself.
Yeah, certainly. My name is Jay Kennedy. I'm an adjunct professor in the Faculty of Education. I teach a lot of the research methods courses, as well as I teach about environmental and outdoor education.
Thank you, Jay. And again, thank you so much for accepting this invitation and coming here to help our incoming MEd students. On behalf of these students, and also based on a lot of queries that we often receive, I would like to ask a question to you. That is that if you could kindly share some of the things that are expected from an incoming MEd student, and basically for students to understand what is expected of them when they start an MEd program at Lakehead.
Yeah. Well, what I would say first is probably the biggest expectation is just to be aware of the expectations. So making sure that when you take a course, you go through the syllabus or the course outline and read it carefully and understand what all the assignments mean. And if you are confused by those, or because often, I don't know, in my classes, sometimes some of the wording might be ambiguous. And so I really appreciate when students take the time to ask me questions and clarify what those expectations are. Likewise, and I found that this has dropped off since maybe the pandemic, but I encourage students to do this, which is to book times to come and meet with the professors, because having individual time, because when I get a question from my class about an assignment or an expectation, I explain it to the general class, but I find some students might be a little, I don't know, they might be a little reticent and might not want to ask further questions. But I encourage students to come meet with me, and that way we can have a one-on-one and discuss what the expectations are, and I can address their specific questions and clarify any doubts they might have or anything like that. So I think that is something that's really, really important, because I feel like it brings the tension down, the anxiety down, because once you know what's expected of you, then you can work to actually fulfill those. And in terms of other expectations, I would, and this went for me when I started the master's, because there was a bit of a gap between my undergraduate studies and my graduate studies. I went back and started looking at how you write a paper. So what exactly is the structure that you use? There is, at least in North America, there's a fairly standard structure of a paper, and it's and I was taught this structure when I was in high school, and it becomes more elaborate as you go through the different levels of schooling, but effectively the same structure is at play. And so if you can use that structure, you will largely be successful. And I think that there's an expectation that in order to be successful in graduate studies, you have to be smart. I disagree with that. I think what you have to be successful in graduate studies, one, you have to be aware of the expectations, but two, you simply have to learn the formula. There is a formula to graduate work, and once you know what that structure and that formula is, you just apply it to every assignment, and there are very few assignments that don't fit within that structure. And so if you can learn that formula, you will largely be successful throughout whatever paper it is or whatever assignment it is that you're going to produce. May I keep going?
Yeah, but so I think whatever you have shared so far sounds like a checklist, but at the same time, they don't have to worry about this checklist in advance. It's like as they navigate through this journey in their graduate studies, they can reach out to their professors and keep unfolding these. Right?
That's right.
So, yeah, you can go ahead if you.
Sorry, you asked me for 5 things ahead of time, so I guess my next point would be that I think a lot of students come in and they search for the correct answer. And I think in graduate studies, there isn't a correct answer. And I say this quite often to my classes, that when you write an assignment, oftentimes you're writing an argument,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of how it's construed. So I try to describe it more as like writing a persuasive essay, or if you've ever done debate, that it's more like producing your argument for a debate.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have generally in mind what you want to say, but then you have to support those ideas with statistics or other kind of sources that can back up your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is no such thing really as a correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
I have students come to me and say, "Is this the right answer?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I will only know when you produce your argument and by how well supported it is and how well structured it is."
Right. Yeah, and that makes total sense. So I think you don't have to worry about having it done the right way. It's just about having it done and your way, and
Exactly.
and also seeking help to find out if your way is speaking the way you want it to speak. Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and that's I think that's really insightful, and I'm sure that will be helpful to our students. So. Keeping time in mind, I would move to the next point,
Yeah, please.
which is about APA. That's like all the formatting, citations, and everything, and that actually looks like a monster to a lot of incoming students. I think it did to me as well at a time. So if you would like to share some points there on APA and how to not be afraid of APA and not to make it look like a monster to our incoming students.
Certainly. Well, I think that kind of on my last, not my last point, my second last point, which was that once you learn the system, then you're well set up. I think that APA helps you to structure your assignments. If you look at, there are a number of different like websites that professors often put up on their D2L sites and things like that. They're often example papers, and so those example papers can help students to structure how they're writing, and that actually is that structure I was talking about earlier. So kind of like going through and putting the time in to learn, to just learn exactly what APA means in terms of just like the whole setup of the paper as well as citations and things like that is really, really beneficial, because I think it's seen as often like a nitpicky, there's no real reason behind it, it's just kind of an added piece of work, but really it adds two things. One, it adds structure and it adds a system which you can just like follow again and again, but it also kind of oftentimes it describes your credibility within the graduate system. I review papers for journals, and if I see that the APA is not done well, I immediately think there are going to be problems with this manuscript. So it's a kind of a credibility marker, and so to put time into that and learn that is I think pretty important.
But at the same time, it's nothing to be afraid of, and it's not like you have to be perfect in it like right as soon as you start your master's degree. It comes with time and practice.
Oh goodness, I still was not very good at it by the time I got out of my master's degree. I only kind of perfected my APA when I left, when I entered my PhD studies. But at the same time, it is worth being aware that certain professors will be more demanding about APA than others. So as long as you're kind of like okay with that in terms of like marks and things like that, I personally was never worried about it. I generally knew the structure, but I didn't worry about where to put individual commas. I think the overall idea is just know that there are certain expectations, and as long as you're aware that those expectations exist, you can kind of try and keep following them, but to follow them to the absolute letter is probably not necessary in every assignment, and it will come, like you said, with time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, would you